Good morning and welcome to the Lakers Lowdown. I'm Anthony Irwin. Today on the show, as you can see, again, if you're watching on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button right now. Do it right. I'm going to wait. I won't wait that long because there's a show and people watch, but please do subscribe on YouTube. Please subscribe everywhere that you get your pods. Please leave those 5-star reviews. If you leave them in the form of a question, I will answer them. Today on the show, though, we are going to be talking about the trade targets piece that I wrote for Substack. I didn't really like the explainer that I did on Friday's show, so I'm just going to touch on that and go kind of target by target, trade by trade, and also just kind of generally explain the concepts that I was throwing out there. The Lakers also have a backup center problem, so we're going to talk about that a little bit. We got the latest on Gabe Vincent by way of injury report for Monday against the New York Knicks. Yeah, he's not ready to go. And then speaking of those Knicks, I am going to preview that game as well. So again, subscribe and let's get to the show. All right, before I get to specific guys and specific trades that I threw together here, I want to explain a couple things that I think I might not have been clear enough on when I wrote it, and then when I talked about it on Friday's show. On Friday, I talked about this, but I did so pretty hurriedly. Like for some reason, I was really rushing through the show. Well, the reason was I was supposed to pick up my daughter, and then Jen told me she was able to pick her up way too late, and the show had already happened, and it was live, and that makes it kind of difficult as well. But today, I'm going to slow down a little bit, and I want to really start by explaining the project that this piece was, and this was written, the article on Substack, which I'll throw in the comment section of this thing. The article that I wrote, or I'll throw it in the description. That's what I'll do. I'll throw it in the description like I did last time. The article that I wrote for Substack was basically explaining the trade market as it exists right now and throwing out a few names that the Lakers are interested in here. Not just that I think makes sense, but some of the guys that I do think the Lakers are going to be closely linked to over the course of the season, obviously ranging in terms of actual and legitimate interest. I did, however, include Zach LaVine, somebody who I'm told very clearly, and I've been told very clearly multiple times now, the Lakers are not particularly interested in. I'd take that a step further and say that nobody is really interested in Zach LaVine. And that is something that Adrian Wojnarowski was cool with explaining, right? That's why when I was throwing graphics together for trade packages, I did legitimately hop on Trade Machine. I really did. And I wanted to throw a trade package that I think would actually be thrown out right now. And I couldn't because there is no trade package. That's why this is the graphic that shows up. You Google Zach LaVine trades, it makes sense. And it doesn't show any documents because from the Lakers perspective, they don't have any just stale money. They don't have any contracts that are devoted to guys that aren't important parts of the rotation. And, so when you're talking about a D'Angelo Russell and when you're talking about a Rui Hachimura, two guys who would probably have to be combined to bring back a Zach LaVine, that's a trade that the Lakers aren't interested in right now because that puts them at severe risk. And that is the same for everybody. Zach LaVine's number right now that you have to get to send out matching money is $40 million. You have to get to within like 5% of that. And if you are going to do that, that means you are probably sending out money that is used in NBA minutes. Had the Lakers kept Mo Bamba, had they kept Malik Beasley, now you're halfway there, right? And now you only have to move one of D'Angelo Russell or Rui Hachimura. And maybe they're more interested in that. Well, I know they would be more interested in that, but I don't know that they would be actually interested enough to make that deal. And the Bulls, by the way, especially right now, and this gets to the second kind of macro point about that piece. Right now, if you want to trade for Zach LaVine, you are going to be expected to give up a starting caliber role player right now, a young developing prospect with real potential, and on top of that, you are expected to give up draft capital. And that's if you trade for him right now. And that's the second point that I really wanted to hammer home in the approach that I had writing this. The trades that I threw out there aren't trades that I myself would make right now. The trades that I threw out there are basically the asking prices of the various guys that I list, right? And the five guys that we are going to be talking about here are Zach LaVine, Alex Caruso, Gary Trent Jr., OG Anunoby, and Kyle Kuzma. So for those guys' prices right now, they are going to be inflated, and all basically prices on the market right now are inflated because this is when negotiations would like start. This is the starting point of trade season. So if you are desperate enough to trade for somebody right now, means you're going to pay more for that player right now. And then over the course of the season, that trade price is going to drop. And from the Lakers' perspective, that's why they are not very active in trade negotiations, right? They aren't active at all in trade negotiations right now because they don't need to make a deal right now. This isn't a Russell Westbrook situation. Lakers are fine. They aren't, I don't think, as good as they were hoping to be this season. They aren't as good as I thought they were going to be at this point in the season, but they're still fine, and they're still waiting to get various guys healthy. Again, more on Gabe Vincent here in a little bit, but they're waiting to get guys healthy, and they want to see this full roster together, if possible, before they make any kind of change to the roster. Not even, well, if there's a minor tweak here and there, maybe that. No, they aren't looking to make any minor tweaks, sweeping changes, nothing like that right now because they're fine. And that's the right stance, I think. So these trades, again, that I threw out there are prices as they stand right now and not trades that I think are eventually going to be the ones that the Lakers make if they do trade for any of these guys. So I want to be absolutely clear there before I go into, further details on each guy, that this is basically the premise that I have and what I was setting out to do in writing the piece. And if that did not come across, my apologies. I will be clearer next time. Let's start. I'm going to go in the order of the guys as they appear on in the piece, right? So I started with Zach LaVine, and again, this is the trade that I threw together, or the what I was able to find in terms of trades that make sense. There are none. Zach LaVine makes too much money and is too questionable a player right now in terms of impact on winning for the Lakers to be interested at all. Every time this rumor comes up, I reach back out to the people that I talk to, and I say, "There's been no change, right?" And generally speaking, and no, actually speaking, the response is, "Yeah, no change. Not that interested. Not really interested at all. Nobody's really all that interested." And I move on with the rest of my day and living my life, basically. And so with Zach LaVine, the concern from the Lakers' perspective is he is too early in a contract to hope that they are able to tweak his approach to the game. He's a very talented player. He's a very exciting player. If the Lakers weren't so hyper focused on winning a championship this year, they would probably be interested in Zach LaVine. He would put butts in seats. Not that that's something that the Lakers are ever particularly concerned about, but for those, like the type of team that he's probably eventually going to go to is, like a mediocre to below mediocre team that is looking to change things up and hoping to inject their fan base with a little bit of excitement with a two-time slam dunk contest champion who is still very much in the prime of his career and doesn't necessarily help you win a bunch of ball games, but who cares? You're focused on selling seats right now. So that is, I think, how things are probably going to go for LaVine. He is obviously very much on the market right now. So of all of the guys that I'm talking about, his price, even at its highest that it is going to be this season, is still significantly lower than everybody else that I'm going to talk about. But I felt the need to include him in this list and even start the list with him because he is a name that just will not, and a rumor that just will not die. I also got to some of why that rumor will not die. I've talked about this with Aaron, and I'm probably gonna have to talk to it about it with Harrison at some point, because you guys know how much he loves talking about journalism with me. But essentially, Zach LaVine is repped by Clutch. Clutch is very, very good at leveraging their relationships with newsbreakers and news entities in the industry to, provide a little bit of spin on the situation for themselves. And in this case, the more that they throw out, the Lakers in particular having interest or even hypothetical interest from the Lakers' part, just by mentioning Lakers trade rumors, Zach LaVine, that is going to keep their client in the news cycle. And if the vast majority of people see those headlines and think to themselves, "Ooh, maybe the Lakers are interested," that applies pressure to other fan bases who are hoping to trade for him, and it just creates a bit of a market for itself. And I'm not saying that Shams is like lying on Clutch's behalf. I don't know who his sources are. I have an idea, obviously, but I'm not going to go that far to say that Shams would lie for a a source. That is not an allegation I will ever make of any reporter, because I don't know. What I will say though is that like he is going to keep on putting Zach LaVine's name in the same sentence as the Lakers, even if they aren't interested. Not to say that, like, he hasn't, I don't believe, said that the Lakers are interested. He just keeps throwing the Lakers out there as a potential trade partner, and the Lakers aren't going to shut that down because it's not worth it from their perspective, and it would hurt their relationship with Clutch, which makes it really, really not worth it. So what is going on right now is that, he'll say Zach LaVine is very much on the market. And, just so you know, the Lakers have money that could be matched or could be compiled to send out enough money to go out and get the guy. That is not saying that they would be interested in doing so, because they aren't. But the way that the news industry works, and because of the way social media works, people are going to keep on putting Lakers trade rumors, Zach LaVine, in their headlines, in their hyperlinks, in their tweets, because they know that is going to get a bunch of traffic for themselves. And so goes it all. The next name on this list that I went with, and I did this on purpose, was Alex Caruso. And here's the trade as I threw it together. This would land the Lakers Alex Caruso, Andre Drummond, and Lonzo Ball. They would have to send out Rui Hachimura, Gabe Vincent, Jalen Hood-Schifino, and Jackson Hayes. And they would obviously send out a bunch of draft capital. Right now, as it stands, I'm told that the Bulls are expecting superstar type draft capital for this guy. So they're talking about multiple first round picks, very little, if any at all, protection on those first round picks, and a solid role player, and young talent, and a big expiring. And by the way, you are going to be expected to take on some of their dead money in order to land Alex Caruso. And in this case, unfortunately, I lumped Lonzo Ball into this trade because there is legitimate concern around the league about whether he will ever be the same player, i.e., or maybe even play basketball again. It sucks that that is a situation he is in. I am rooting like hell for him to turn things around and prove all of those people wrong. But right now, in terms of assets, he is seen as dead money on your books. And for from the Lakers' perspective, and for any team looking to acquire Alex Caruso right now, the expectation is to pay astronomical prices for him. And the prices are so high right now that a few people that I have spoken to around the league think to themselves that he's not actually on the market, right? It's kind of like if you walk into an open house and you talk to the realtor and you know that the asking price on that house is 1.5 million, and you say, "All right, let's get to that negotiating table," and your first offer is 200K or something more offensive than that, that realtor knows at that moment you aren't interested, right? And let's say, with Facebook Marketplace, for example, right? You see all kinds of stuff on Facebook Marketplace. All kinds like I when I scroll there, and it is like a total rabbit hole that I find myself just diving headfirst into. But what I'll laugh at sometimes are things that are very clearly being put out there by a significant other who is sick of having that thing in the house, and what that price is listed at is way too high. And the point is to say, well, look, sorry, honey, I didn't get any serious offers for this thing. And it's technically for sale, but it's not really for sale. And I think that's essentially how Alex Caruso is seen as right now around the league, where yeah, he's technically on the trade. He could be traded this year, maybe even might be traded this year. But as it stands right now, the notion around the league is those prices are so high that the Bulls aren't actually all that interested in trading for him. And they're basically hoping to get such bad offers relative to their asking price that they can go back to ownership and they can go back to their fans and say, sorry, we just didn't get any serious offers for the guy. And we are going to play out the rest of the season with them. The other thing, too, that I found interesting, it was reported, I forget who reported it, regarding Caruso, is that the Bulls, look, they've picked up, like they're the kind of basketball that they're playing right now is quite a bit better since Zach LaVine started sitting compared to the beginning of the season. And essentially, what they're saying right now, their stance with Caruso is, well, let's see what we get for Zach LaVine. And we'll see how competitive we are after that trade. And in order to be competitive, you can't trade your most positively impactful player. And that is who Alex Caruso is. So when you combine the asking price right now from the Chicago Bulls, the amount of competition that the Lakers are going to have in their interest for Alex Caruso, and he is one of the hottest commodities on the even potential trade market right now around the league. That from the Lakers' perspective, I would be pretty surprised if they're able to walk away with him this season. And I hope so, because I think he would fit in perfectly with the identity that the Lakers have kind of carved out for themselves. But I'm not particularly optimistic in their ability to do so. But again, what I did in the piece was outline a trade offer as it would have to look right now for given what the Chicago Bulls are asking for him. And again, trading Rui Hachimura would kind of hurt because he's a proven playoff performer. Trading Gabe Vincent wouldn't really bother me all that much. Obviously, Jalen Hood-Schifino is a first round pick we haven't seen play, so you're doing that, and you're kind of hoping that he doesn't have the amount of potential that the Lakers thought. And then Jackson Hayes is just a contract that would go out as you bring back Andre Drummond. I do think, by the way, that the Lakers are going to continue to kick the tires on somebody like Andre Drummond or players, centers to fortify their backup center spot. Again, more on that here in a little bit. But with Alex Caruso, that market is too crazy. He is too popular a commodity out there, and the Bulls themselves are they don't appear to be very serious about. Well, they aren't very serious as an organization, but as it pertains to Alex Caruso, they do not want to trade him. The next guy, as they appear on the list, is who is it? OG, yeah, OG Anunoby is the next one here in the trade as it exists right now. The Lakers would have to send out Rui Hachimura. They would have to send out Jalen Hood-Schifino, and they would have to send out Max Christie, plus a whole bunch of draft capital for somebody who everybody knows Masai Ujiri should probably trade. Everybody felt that way about Fred VanVleet, but instead, Masai basically held on to him and wound up losing him for nothing. So with OG Anunoby, with Pascal Siakam, I could have written about Siakam. The Lakers are obviously interested, but that's because like 29 other teams were interested in Pascal Siakam. They don't have the pieces to get him. They don't even have the pieces to get into that conversation right now, I don't believe. With OG, it's close. I think their offer would probably be topped, and with Masai Ujiri, you always got to worry that it wouldn't matter if their offer is serious, that he just doesn't want to trade him, OG Anunoby in this case. And, if that's the case, then you can't force another team to trade somebody. This isn't NBA 2K. My thing with OG is they need somebody to be able to guard like Anthony Edwards if they were to face them in a playoff series. They need another, I think, option to guard Jamal Murray or to guard Devin Booker or to guard like all of these perimeter threats. I think OG would be absolutely perfect to defend and throw out there as like the player who gets those assignments night in, night out, game in, game out in the middle of a series. And uh the thing with that and the thing with OG is that he knows how valuable his defense is. He knows how valuable a player he is if he is able to knock down the three-pointer with more consistency than he has shown to this point in his career. And if he puts those things together, he becomes and he expects to be paid as a max player. That's where you're really what you're paying, what you would be paying him would be for some of that potential, which I would be pretty confident that he would live up to, to that, playing next to LeBron, playing next to AD. It's the post LeBron portion of all of this that makes me nervous with OG because I don't think he's that kind of creator. And if you are going to be paying somebody max money, you bet and you better be hoping that they develop those creative chops. And with him, I just don't necessarily see it. But uh, I do think, and I have heard that the Lakers are going to continue to be interested in OG Anunoby. They have had conversations about him in the past, and they will have conversations about him moving forward this season. And again, just as was the case with Fred VanVleet, the inherent pressure here is that everybody knows that the Toronto Raptors basically have to move this guy or risk losing him for nothing. The thing where that can get kind of tricky is that the Raptors know everybody knows that and thus aren't going to be taken advantage of. And that's why you see Masai basically say, no, I'm not. I'd rather lose Fred VanVleet for nothing than take on another team's bad money or then not get, than to set a market for myself that makes it harder to move guys moving forward. And, we'll see if he remains as strident with this one as he did last time. There is no crazy pressure. His seat isn't hot at all. So it's not like he is going to be forced to make any kind of a trade here. And, and the price right now is too high. Like trading both Fino and Max Christie for this guy right now, plus all of the draft capital that would be expected to be moved, and you're, a playoff proven wing, that's a big ask. And I don't think the Lakers are interested right now. They will be eventually. They'll be more interested eventually over the course of the season. But as it stands right now, that price is way too high for them, and they are cool sitting this one out. The next one is interesting. Gary Trent Jr. is the next name on this list. Again, this is as the trade would exist right now. Gary Trent Jr. going to the Lakers for D'Angelo Russell and Maxwell Lewis. Plus, I would probably say it would cost like very, very, very highly protected first. I don't think the Lakers would be interested at all in Gary Trent Jr. for a first ever this season. So that's why they aren't, no trade is going to happen right now. I think eventually the Lakers are going to wait for the price to drop down to where they could get him for, those two guys, D'Angelo Russell and Maxwell Lewis, and maybe like a couple seconds or a few seconds. And at that point, I think that would be a more serious conversation. But again, that's when you're hoping that Masai Ujiri is willing to depress his own market by making that kind of a move. And to this point in his tenure as lead decision maker for the Toronto Raptors, that is not something he has been interested in doing. So in terms of the player, though, I love it. It would be great. He's a pretty good defender. He's not as good as Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. He does have more creative chops than Pope does. He's a pretty good shooter. He's somewhat streaky, but he's a good shooter. And he would be your starting shooting guard and probably closing shooting guard. And that is something that that's a spot that the Lakers are looking to upgrade over the course of this season. I think coming into it, they were hoping to see a little bit more from Max Christie. And we're hoping that maybe he develops into that guy over the course of the season. That has not been the case. They've obviously, and we've all been very happy with what Cam Reddish has been able to do. And maybe they're just fine with him being the pseudo shooting guard starting next to Austin Reeves once D'Lo is eventually moved. And in which case, or maybe if it isn't Austin Reeves, maybe it would be Gabe Vincent if he's ever healthy. But yeah, the Lakers know that they need to upgrade their shooting guard spot. They want somebody that they are comfortable closing games night in, night out. And Trent would be that, I think. Trent would be, we've seen the impact Kentavious Caldwell-Pope has made in Denver, where he basically solidified their best lineup, solidified their rotations, is an absolutely stellar perimeter defender now, knocks down threes, all of those things, fits perfectly with what Denver needs. It like breaks my heart that I have to keep seeing that and saying that, but that is the case. And I think the Lakers here, if they did make a move for Gary Trent, would be hoping for similar impact, even though it's not going to be apples to apples, but they're hoping that in trading for Gary Trent Jr., that would be the type of return that they would be expecting whenever he gets into, or if and whenever he becomes a Laker. Next on the list here, and the last one that I spent significant time on, was Kyle Kuzma. And so one source of questioning in writing this was from readers and listeners saying, wait, wasn't he cool with getting moved because for whatever reason, because he wanted to get out from behind LeBron and get out from behind AD. So a couple factors there. One, it's not wrong. Kuz, from what I have been told, and as the explanation I have gotten to this point with Kuz, is that he was not like pushing for a trade in any real way. There was no like pressure, get me out of here. I want to see what I can do here. But when it looked like he was going to get moved, there wasn't any real pushback either. I think he wanted to go out and, you know, move into a spot where he would have more responsibility on especially the offensive side of the ball as it pertains to creating, and he wanted to see how he could handle those things. And in fairness to him, he's been very good for Washington. Got that big payday over the course of this last offseason. Is somebody who, if his name hits the trade market again this year, would have a whole bunch of interest in him. He's somebody who the team that acquires him, if they pay the right price, could like legitimately swing, who is what kind of favorite heading into the playoffs here. And so as I have been told, the two factors were he wanted to chart out his own course and see how that would go, and it's gone very well for him. And then the other thing too was when he was a Laker, remember Anthony Davis was a lot more reticent to play center minutes. And that meant that AD saw himself as a 4. LeBron, even though he saw himself as a 3, was more effective as a 4. So that means the team's two best players there played Kyle Kuzma's position, and that makes it tough to find any consistency if that is going to be the case. Now, he is, I think, now a bona fide 3, moves his feet very well to defend on the perimeter, knocks down shots, has a nice quick release. And, given some of the Lakers' creation problems, I think would fit really, really well in to those non-LeBron minutes. Um, it was funny when I was putting this trade together. Initially, I had Rui going to Washington, but then I was like, well, they probably wouldn't reacquire him because of how that relationship was by the time that he got traded. And so I don't think that Rui is really an option here unless you're getting a third team involved. And that's why I had D'Angelo Russell going to Washington here. And this is the trade, again, as it exists right now. This is kind of the start of negotiations, and that would feature Kyle Kuzma obviously going to the Lakers, with D'Angelo Russell, Taurean Prince, and Hood Schifino going to Washington, plus draft capital. And I'm told that they are expecting 1 first-round pick at least, and with very light to no protection on that, plus a second first-round pick with, granted with more protection, and maybe some second round draft capital, as well as a solid NBA player right now on a good contract, and young talent going out. And that is what D'Angelo Russell is. He is solid as an NBA player, and he's on a very workable, movable contract. And then Taurean Prince, if this is the player that he is, where he's starting to really kind of creep up towards the 40% from 3 that he promised everybody, $4.5 million a year for that guy is, very good value. So um, I think that is the starting point of these negotiations right now, and that is not something that the Lakers are interested in right now. Eventually, maybe they'll change their tune, and eventually, maybe you'll see these teams come together in some of these trade talks. But as it stands right now, the Warriors aren't interested in trading Kyle Kuzma right now, because again, it would be an acknowledgement that this is just yet another core that was doomed from the get-go. They know that they have to move Kuz and maybe even Jordan Poole to be seen more seriously around the league. And whenever that happens, they are going to be very careful to avoid a situation like they saw with Rui Hachimura, where they traded him for pennies on the dollar, right? They got Kendrick Nunn and I believe like some second round draft pick capital, and saw him become a player who was an important guy in the Lakers rotation in last year's playoffs. And that's the kind of thing that like you go to your owner if you're a GM, and the owner says, "Wait, what did we trade that guy for?" That's it. And that is a very awkward conversation that the Washington Wizards do not want to have again. Because if you keep on having that conversation, you wind up having zero conversations with ownership, as you will have lost your job. So Kyle Kuzma is going to be somebody who a lot of people are going to be calling about. There's going to be a lot of competition for his services on the trade market. And it is very easy to find somebody to tell me how much Kuzma would like to be back in LA. He's a very smart guy. He's a very charismatic guy. He knows the boost to his platform that the Lakers provided him while he was there and would once again provide if and when he returns. And I think now, having had the opportunity to have the amount of freedom that he has had in Washington, and now that he has done so much losing with all of that freedom, I'm told that he is a lot more open to just kind of assuming that role with more responsibility, obviously, than he had the last time he was a Laker. He's a better player now than he was when he was a Laker the last time we saw him. And I think the Lakers would be able to carve out that role for him. And as such, both parties here are very interested in picking things back up with each other. I also added some quick notes here at the bottom of the post that I'll just really quickly fire off to you guys. So with uh, D'Angelo Russell, the notion is that everybody around the league kind of knows that eventually he's going to be moved. But the Lakers are pretty adamant in telling people that that is not some, guarantee. Now, I think some of that is posturing given the point in the season, the way that he's playing, and the way that the Lakers collectively are playing. So, and also, like, if everybody knows that he's going to be moved, then that gives you zero leverage for eventually moving him. So the Lakers are doing everything to prop up his trade market, and whether people are buying it or whether teams are buying it is another conversation altogether. He's also kind of a tough player to trade because he is not young enough to be seen as having potential, and he's not really good enough to, for teams to say that guy is we're going to bring him in here and he's definitely going to help us take the next step forward. So um, that's where it's kind of tricky here for the Lakers, where you combine the way that he signed his contract. Remember, he waived his no trade clause right off the bat. Like, when he signed it, they gave him a little bit more money. And the notion was that he was going to waive that, and it made him more movable over the course of the season. That signaled to everybody in loud, bright letters that this guy is, very much going to be on the market, either when he signed his contract or like as he was signing it. The thought was that the Lakers, like, I've heard from people that when they made that, when they agreed to an offer, that it took a little while for them to actually make it official because they were kind of fielding offers. Hey, what would you be interested in giving up for D'Angelo Russell at this number and for this long on his contract? The offers that they were getting back at the time were not very good. So they just said, screw it, we'll go into the season with him. And, that's had an impact on his game. I think there are stretches where he looks really good and he looks really focused. And I think there are others where, you get into a bit of a funk because every time you miss a shot, you can actually hear Lakers fans all over the world putting your name into the trade machine. So, yeah, I think for the time being, the move, and this is the case with everybody on the Lakers roster, but in particular with D'Angelo Russell, somebody who the Lakers are trying to, you know, give off the vibe that they are not interested in moving him right away, and maybe even at all, to make him more interesting a trade target. But the Lakers aren't going to be moving him anytime soon. They want to see what their 3 guard rotation looks like when Gabe Vincent comes back. And yeah, that is a D'Angelo Russell trade is not going to be happening until, well, he can't be traded until January 15th anyway, because of the type of deal that he signed. And even beyond that, he won't be moved until, like, late January, February, leading up into the deadline. All right. The next kind of quick note here that I have is on Austin Reeves. This is a quick note, but the Lakers consider him as close to untouchable as you can, right? Obviously, LeBron and AD are untouchable. They aren't trading those guys. They aren't interested in having any conversations about those guys. It's not happening. So every time that AD like misses a dunk or something like that, and you see people say like, "Oh, it's time to move on" or whatever, it's never happening. Not this season and probably not for the foreseeable future. Those guys are not being traded, period. Austin Reeves is right behind those guys in that sentiment where if the Lakers trade him, I was told in writing this that the Lakers would be looking for like the kind of player that they would be getting back is the kind of player that the league gets angry about because they were able to get that player and it would make them that kind of a favorite. So whatever all-star, and we're not talking replacement level all-star. We're talking potential starter type in the all-star game type talent that the Lakers would be expecting to get back in a package that involves Austin Reeves. And again, like I kind of said with Alex Caruso, if the price is that high as it is with Austin Reeves, the inherent statement in there is that he's not actually on the market. So that's how it goes with Austin Reeves. I know he's a popular guy to throw out there, and see what you might be able to get back. But when I did any asking around there, it was very quickly shot down. No, the Lakers aren't trading Austin. The next note is on the young guys that the Lakers have, and it's tough, right? Max Christie had a lot of promise coming into the season. He's been up and down and mostly down. Jalen Hood-Schifino was a first-round pick that the Lakers obviously feel very confident in, but we've not seen him. We've barely seen him at all. And when we've seen him out there, not all that inspiring, right? So with both of those guys, a lot more so Jalen Hood-Schifino, it's tough to sell a team on just potential when there is zero data on the guy, G League or otherwise. There's just not anything known at the NBA level about Jalen Hood-Schifino. And yeah, that might make it easier for a team that is trying to lose anyway to take him on and say, screw it. We'll just go with the guy with more potential there. But that's not the case with the kinds of teams that the Lakers are going to be having these conversations with. So Jalen Hood-Schifino, Max Christie, Maxwell Lewis, Colin Castleton, if those guys' names are in there, and they will be, they will come up over the course of the year in a lot of these trade rumors, and maybe one or two of those guys get moved in the right kind of deal. But the Lakers are going to need to start seeing more from those guys, and the league is going to need to start seeing more from those guys for them to be considered assets in a trade rather than like throw-ins to make the trade look a little bit better. Another funny note, and I know how much you guys love me talking about luxury taxes, so I will move on quickly. But the Lakers are only about 1.2 million bucks above the luxury tax line. And my guess is over the course of trade season that they find a way to bring back at least 1.2, 1.3 million bucks less than they send out over the course of trade season so that they're able to reset their repeater tax. Either that or they take in so much more money that it makes them a significantly better team, even if it becomes a more expensive team. The worst thing that you can do as it pertains to luxury taxes is to hover right at the line because you are paying them and you are limiting the number of options that you will have to be able to build your team um, because you are paying those taxes. And if you do them often and do that often enough, right, it really starts to get those punishments become pretty brutal. So you either want to blow right through that luxury tax line or you want to stay under it. And in this case, with the Lakers hovering right at it, they are going to have to make a decision one way or the other. And seeing as they're hard capped and you can't really fully blow through the luxury tax in the way that it makes sense to do so. My guess is over the course of trade season, they wind up getting under the luxury tax somehow, some way. I don't think they're so desperate that they would make their team worse, but I do think that, if it's a player who they don't feel like they're going to use a whole bunch anyway, they'll send that player into some team's cap space with something else to be able to dip under that luxury tax. All right. The other names that I didn't write specifically about, but probably will over the course of slop season that I listed here: Jordan Clarkson, Bojan Bogdanovic, Alec Burks, Dorian Finney-Smith, Royce O'Neal. Lonnie Walker is a fun one that I've heard a little bit about. Gordon Hayward, Jeremy Grant, Malcolm Brogdon, Keldon Johnson, Zach Collins, and there are probably others. But those are some names that I'd heard enough about to include them in the piece, but didn't hear enough about to write about specifically. Bojan, of all of those guys there, I think Bojan is going to come up quite a bit over the course of trade season. I think Jeremy Grant is going to come up quite a bit over the course of trade season. Malcolm Brogdon, depending on the type of deal that the Lakers move, if they trade, D'Angelo Russell is somebody who's probably going to come up. Lonnie Walker is making so little money that I think the Lakers might be interested in bringing him back. Although I don't know where that relationship is between the two sides, because I think Lonnie was hoping to stick around with the Lakers and have at least partial or early bird rights after this season. That didn't happen, and so we'll see what kind of interest he has in going back to the Lakers. But yeah, I think there are a few guys there who I think are going to come up a little bit more than others. But nobody there that I listed was worth spending, the hundreds of words that it would have taken to explain their current trade situation. All right, let's really quickly get to the second topic here, that being the backup center spot. The Lakers basically have tricked themselves with success, I think, where Dwight was such an overwhelming success as a minimum signing that I think they're continuing to hope to catch lightning in a bottle again, like they did there. And that is just really difficult. Dwight was the circumstances. If you remember with Dwight, his reputation around the league was in the garbage. And so they were able to and they were able to sign him way below, I think, market value there. He was specifically equipped to deal with somebody like Jokic before Jokic took another step forward in his career. And I think, now obviously like Dwight isn't in the league anymore. And he has obviously a whole bunch of other things going on as well. But I'm talking more specifically about the approach that the Lakers are taking here. Last year, they traded for Mo Bamba, and that didn't work out. So they basically said, well, that didn't work. So let's try signing guys to minimums again. And they went with Jackson Hayes and Christian Wood. From what I've been told, this one's a little tricky because there's kind of conflicting messages here. But, depending on the person that I've spoken to, some people have said that had they known that Christian Wood was going to be available for the minimum, they probably wouldn't have jumped for Jackson Hayes as quickly as they did and would have waited for Christian Wood and maybe Bismack Biyombo and see if they could get both of those guys. I don't think both of those guys would have signed with the Lakers because they knew that they would have been competing for minutes, that being Wood and Biyombo. I think under any circumstances, you probably were only getting one of those guys. And the spot that the Lakers find themselves in now is both of the skill sets that they were hoping to get from both of those guys. In Jackson Hayes' case, they were hoping for more rim protection, some vertical spacing. They were hoping in Christian Wood's case that they would be getting some rim protection and some lateral spacing, right, with his shooting ability. And they haven't gotten really anything that matches their expectations going in. And yeah, both guys are minimum contracts, and it's hard to expect a whole bunch from minimum contracts, but I think they've been pretty underwhelming. And so my guess is over the course of the season, that the Lakers do something to bring in, you make a Mo Bamba type trade again. Though I think the type of player that they would be trading for would be more proven than Mo Bamba, because obviously Bamba didn't work out last year. So I think like names like Kelly Olynyk is somebody who comes to mind. I mentioned Zach Collins either a game or two ago when I was doing All Access Lakers with those guys. Those kinds of players who have had nice, steady careers and who the Lakers would be more confident in their minutes than they have been with Hayes, with Bamba, or with Wood. Um, and we'll see. Maybe Wood or Hayes step up between now and actual trade season. But for right now, if things continue to go in the way that they are going, the Lakers are very clearly in real need of a center who would not be an unmitigated disaster every time Anthony Davis sits, in the way that Lakers centers have mostly been for the last few years now. All right. Another bit of news here, kind of a bummer. I was hoping to be wrong about this, but remember when the initial report from Shams Charania of The Athletic came out about Gabe Vincent being hopeful to return that Monday, or a week or so from when the report came out, I said that was really surprising to me. Not because I have a whole bunch of doctoral experience. No, I obviously have talked to Jen about the injury, and she was surprised that he would be able to return as quickly as he may have. Um, but on top of that, like, and more importantly, the people that I spoke to when I said, "Wait, what?" They were like, "Well, don't ask us. We don't know where that is coming from." So, unfortunately, though, in looking at the injury report for tomorrow or tonight, by the time you guys are listening to this, against the Knicks, Gabe Vincent is still out. Now, we don't know how close he is. I don't think we're going to get any further detail on this. It really kind of struck me how, and it happened after a loss, so maybe that was part of it too. But when the beat reporters asked Ham about Gabe Vincent, Darvin Ham was not interested in entertaining those questions, gave some pretty snappy answers from a guy who was usually very affable with the media. Um, and yeah, we'll see when he's able to come back. But as it stands right now, Gabe Vincent's return is still on hold, and we'll see what the next set of updates that we get might be. But it really stood out to me in the run up to this hopeful return date that there was never any run up, there was never any ramp up, and the only ramp up that they were talking about was during a road trip, which is really difficult to do because you don't practice very much on a road trip. So yeah, he is not making his return, and we'll see when he might be able to. Now, as far as the Knicks go, this is going to be a tricky one. Julius Randle always plays well against the Lakers. He, I think still holds it against them the way things ended. The Lakers sit at, I think, 15-11. The Knicks sit at 14-11. They've had very similar seasons this year. The Knicks also have somebody in Jalen Brunson who I think is kind of specifically built to give the Lakers some issues. We'll see. I think Cam Reddish is probably going to get the initial shot at him. We'll see if Reddish is able to go. Jared Vanderbilt is considered probable for this one, so I think he might get some minutes on Brunson. And then, you're probably going to get some minutes from Christie and Taurean Prince guarding him as well. And I think the Lakers, essentially, with the way that they're going to guard Brunson, are going to try to, basically kind of turn off the Knicks' engine and hope that you get the domino effect from there. The thing there, though, is that like they have like more secondary creation than, say, the Pacers did when the Lakers took that approach with Tyrese Halliburton, Randall being one of those secondary creators. You have RJ Barrett, who does some creating stuff. You have Josh Hart, who does some creating stuff. And so, we'll see what that looks like. The Knicks are kind of small. They're a physical group, but they're a very kind of small perimeter group. So I kind of wonder if the Lakers are going to do some swarming and blitzing to take advantage of the size advantage that the Lakers might have on the perimeter. So that's something to watch for. And I really sincerely hope we don't see zone again, because the Knicks have way too much creation on the court at all times. Julius Randle likes to operate from the elbows anyway, and that is the worst place that you can possibly have somebody operating or comfortable operating when you play zone. So I'm hoping that that is not something that the Lakers go back to. It hasn't been very effective this year, and it wasn't, it didn't work against the San Antonio team that struggled to score all year. So if it doesn't work there, then using it against an actual playoff team doesn't, makes even less sense. So here's hoping we do not see it there as well. As far as like my expectations for it, Lakers kind of need to win this one, right? Neither of the games against San Antonio went all that well. They obviously lost to the Dallas Mavericks and are in a bit of a rut coming off of the in-season tournament. And I think with this one, I believe it is. It doesn't say if it's a ESPN game, but uh, the Lakers, I think, could really use a step in the right direction here. And I'm really curious how they are going to approach this one. I think everybody is aware of the step down in intensity after that has been very clear since they lost, or since they won that in-season tournament. And I think everybody, really is searching for a way to get some of that intensity back, with the checks not being on the other end of those games. So, yeah, we'll see what that looks like. But I think the Lakers probably take care of business here. But I do expect kind of an ugly game, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if the Lakers lost, as they continue kind of this backslide. They look in non-in-season tournament games, the Lakers have been mediocre to like not particularly great team outside of the in-season tournament games. And if that continues, this is not a team. You know that they're going to defend well. You know that they're going to play hard and physical and all of those things. And that is not a team that you really want to mess with. So hoping for the best. Think the Lakers are going to be able to pull it out, but we will see. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of the Lakers Lowdown. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And we will be, in terms of my plans for tonight, the plan is obviously to sit in with the guys for All Access Lakers to watch the game with you there. Again, that is playback.tv/all access Lakers to watch the game with me and the guys there. Sign in, make an account, comment, all of those things. It's really fun. I've had an absolute blast doing that. And then after the game, I will be here. If the Lakers win, that's usually when I bring a guest on to, kind of bump up the energy. If they lose, then we'll be doing a lowdown. So until the next time you guys hear from me, I'm Anthony Irwin saying have a great rest of your day. Make somebody else's, and I will talk to you tomorrow.